Most of the time, when people think about where economic ideas come from, they jump straight to names like Adam Smith, Karl Marx, or maybe Aristotle. But there is a quieter truth hidden in the history of the medieval world. It is a part of history that is rarely taught in Western schools. Nearly 1,000 years ago, long before modern capitalism or central banks were even a concept, a scholar issued a warning that still feels relevant to every financial crisis we see today. He observed that when money loses its moral purpose, the society around it starts to rot from the inside out. Looking at the world we live in now, it seems he might have understood us better than we realized. To understand this thinker, whose name was Al-Ghazali, you'd have to imagine a world that looked both familiar and very different from our own. The year was around 1100. At that time, Europe was fragmented and relatively poor, still recovering from the early Middle Ages. Meanwhile, the Islamic world was a massive, connected network stretching from Spain all the way to Persia. Its cities, places like Baghdad, Damascus, and Cairo were wealthy, crowded, and highly sophisticated. These were the intellectual and financial powerhouses of the era. Trade routes were busy with caravans carrying silk, spices, and silver. In these busy markets, wealth was transforming society faster than people could really understand. In this world of booming trade and rising inequality, Abu Hamid al-Ghazali emerged. He was a philosopher, a legal expert, and a theologian. He was the kind of thinker who could talk about the nature of the human soul and the mechanics of a currency system in the same breath. Born in 1058 in Persia, he rose quickly through the ranks of the intellectual elite. By his mid-30s, he held one of the most prestigious teaching positions in Baghdad. But he wasn't just interested in his own prestige. He was deeply concerned by the world he saw around him. He saw a society that was getting richer but seemed to be losing its way. He began to ask a very simple but dangerous question. What happens when a civilization gets rich faster than it gets wise? To answer that, he focused on the concept of money itself. This is the part that often surprises people. Al-Ghazali wasn't just looking at money from a religious point of view. He was one of the first people to analyze money in both psychological and systemic terms. He looked at how money shapes the way people behave, how it creates incentives, and how it affects trust between neighbors. At the core of his ideas was a very simple rule. Money is a tool, not a goal. He compared money to a mirror. Now, a mirror has no color of its own, but it reflects every color you put in front of it. Money is just paper and metal. It doesn't feed you or keep you warm. It's all about what you do with it. Its value comes entirely from what it allows people to trade, build, and do together. It is a facilitator of exchange. This sounds like a basic modern economic idea, but Al-Ghazali was writing this in the 11th century, a time when many people still thought wealth was just about how much land you owned or how much treasure you had locked in a room. From this idea, he developed a strong stance against hoarding. To Al-Ghazali, wealth locked away in a chest or buried in the yard was dead money. It wasn't just useless. He believed it was socially destructive. He argued that money must circulate to be healthy. If money isn't moving, it isn't feeding workers, it isn't helping merchants buy goods, and it isn't supporting families. He described hoarding as freezing the bloodstream of society. When the wealthy hoard money, they create an artificial scarcity. It's not that there aren't enough resources to go around, it's that the flow of those resources has been blocked. This causes prices to distort and markets to break down, and eventually, the people at the bottom are the ones who suffer. This led him to his next major observation: speculation and dishonest trade. Al-Ghazali had very little patience for people who manipulated prices or created fake shortages to make a quick profit. He didn't see this as clever business. He saw it as a form of social infection. He believed that markets only function when there is trust. If you go to a market and you assume that every merchant is lying to you or using false weights, the market will eventually fail. He was describing what we now call the cost of doing business, but he put it in human terms. He believed that once trust collapses, the economy collapses right after it. Al-Ghazali really didn't hold back on criticizing how governments managed money. Medieval rulers, much like some modern ones, would often debase their currency. They'd melt down gold or silver coins and mix in cheaper metals like copper. This allowed the ruler to make more coins and spend more money, but it made each individual coin worth less. Al-Ghazali called this outright theft. He warned that when a government manipulates its currency, it is effectively taxing the people in secret. It punishes the poor and the honest workers who are left holding the weak coins. He believed that a ruler who tampered with money was destroying the prosperity of their nation faster than any foreign army ever could. He predicted that if a state did this too often, the people would simply stop using that money and find something else they could actually trust. When you look at his writings today, the parallels are hard to miss. Our modern world is full of the same issues: record levels of debt, massive wealth inequality, and a general feeling that the financial system has become detached from real-world value. We see people fleeing local currencies that have lost their value, just as he predicted. His conclusion was quite simple. A society can survive being poor, but it cannot survive being corrupt. Economic collapse isn't just about numbers. It's really about losing the trust that keeps everything connected. When people stop trusting the money, the institutions, and each other, the system becomes fragile. Al-Ghazali wasn't just preaching, he was describing the reality of human behavior. He understood that money is not just a mechanical object, it's all connected. Ignore the moral ecosystem, and the financial one will crash too. His ideas really matter today because they remind us that money isn't just about cash flow. It's all about how we treat each other. If you found this video on Al-Ghazali and his philosophy helpful, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more. Catch you in the next one.